Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Lake Superior Secrets by Bruce Montagne. This is what the cover looks like, and this is primarily a photography collection. We're going to look at the photographs as well as discuss my opinions and thoughts on the book overall, what I thought about it, what I think I like best about this, and what I think you should take away from this book. But first of all, if you are new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day on a wide variety of fiction and nonfiction, so if that sounds interesting, feel free to stick around. Back to Lake Superior Secrets. So this book called to me off the library shelves because I really like the Great Lakes region of the United States. I feel like it is a very, very beautiful region of the US. I should also say Canada because 4 of the 5 Great Lakes actually also are in the Canadian region as well. And Lake Superior is one of these lakes. It's the biggest of the Great Lakes. It's actually one of the biggest, if not the biggest, freshwater lake in the world. And I felt like a book that just talked about Lake Superior was going to be really, really interesting. So for those of you not familiar, Lake Superior is a Great Lake located between Canada and the US. There is handily a map on the last page of the book, page 160. So for those of you not familiar with the region, this might be a good place to start with this book because it just shows you the lake itself as well as the spots that are going to be discussed / photographed throughout the book with a little map. And also you can just take this list right here in the back, rip it out and use this for a travel list. I have visited many sites listed in this back page and they are all absolutely beautiful. So if you're looking for travel inspiration, this is another great place to start, but this is not a travel book, this is a photography book. So let's talk about photography. The photography is really, really beautiful, which did not surprise me because the region is so beautiful. I am not a photographer, but I have traveled extensively around the Lake Superior region, and even accidentally, I've taken many, many, many beautiful photographs without being trained at all in the art of photography because the region is just that pretty. The focus from the author, Bruce Montagne, or the photographer, is primarily on landscape, although he does have some wildlife. He doesn't seem to be primarily a wildlife photographer. He seems to focus more on the landscape around Lake Superior, which leads me to my second point. Not every photograph is of Lake Superior itself, it is the Lake Superior region. So just because it's Lake Superior Secrets, sometimes the photographs don't actually photograph the lake itself, although there are many, many photographs that do show off the lake in all of its natural beauty. There are, again, some photographs of wildlife, but it's primarily landscapes. I think there's a heavy focus on water in particular in the photographs throughout this book. So not as much on the animals, more about the landscapes around Lake Superior. Something else that I really appreciated when reading this book, and that's something I found when reading that contrast when reading other books about the Great Lake region, is there seems to be an equal focus on photography from the Canadian side and the US side. So usually when I read books about Great Lakes that border both Canada and the US, 4 of the 5 do, the only one that doesn't is Lake Michigan, there seems to be a heavy emphasis on either the Canadian side or the US side, and I find that that focus is really driven by the nationality of the person writing the book. So if I'm reading a book from a Canadian author, naturally there's going to just be more of a focus on the Canadian side. When reading a book by an American author, there's going to be more of a focus on the US side of the lakes. I just find that, and I don't always have a problem with that. I am an American, so I am more familiar with the American side of the lakes. So I am kind of split on this because the American authors are showing me places that I really love and enjoy and have really, really easy access to. Not that Canada's super hard to access, but things that I've seen and traveled to extensively more than the Canadian side. But the Canadian side, the Canadian authors are showing me parts of the lake that I don't normally see. So I kind of like both, and I really appreciate that the author of this book took time to really do an equal split between the parts that are shown in Ontario of Lake Superior and the parts that are shown from the US states that border Lake Superior. And that split really leads into my next point, which you can tell when looking at the photographs in this book that the author has a really deep understanding of the region, and that understanding comes from an intense familiarity with the subject. I get the sense that the author lives and breathes this region. He's very familiar with this region. He has a very strong connection to this region, and that comes through in his photographs. I feel like you get a sense sometimes when an author's photographing something they're not super intimately familiar with for a long period of time. Doesn't mean the photographs are bad, but it feels a little different. It feels a little bit more personal when the author, you sense, has this personal familiarity with the topic. And I get the sense in this book that the author has spent a lot of time in this region, and that's how the author can take such good photographs. And I think because the author has spent a lot of time in this region, he seems to have done a really good job of traveling and photographing from both the US side and the Canadian side of this Great Lake. And I really appreciate that as a reader who likes the American side because it's more familiar to me and it's seeing things that I've seen before and just seeing great photography of places I'm already familiar with, while also getting that part of the Canadian side, which I'm less familiar with. I haven't visited as frequently because it is in a different country, and it adds that intrigue to the photography as well. So I do think that the author did a really good job of combining his intimate familiarity with the topic with great photography to get a really good collection. Now, interspersed between the photographs is reflection. So the author occasionally does these one-page reflections just on thoughts or things that he's experienced when photographing. They're more meditative than really factual, so it's not like a list of the camera gear he's using or a difficult experience he experienced, but just kind of his thoughts or his internal emotional state when photographing or experiencing life or just camping, visiting, whatever he does in these regions. But it is primarily the photography that stands out in this book. I do think that this book is a book that stands up well to time. The book is from 2005, so it is at this point quite a bit older, almost 20 years old, but I don't think that detracts from the focus because the author isn't trying to photograph current events, but trying to focus on the landscapes of the Great Lake region. I think it's still very relevant today, even though we are almost 20 years removed from when this book was purchased. I think that if you like the Great Lakes region, or if you're looking for a book of photography from the Great Lakes region, the Lake Superior Secrets could be a fantastic book to check out and give it a peruse, give it a look through and see if the photography in here calls to you or if you also enjoyed the photography as much as I did. I also want to end on a note that I should be getting paid for by tourism boards. If you have not visited the US, or if you are in the US and have not visited the Great Lakes region, I highly recommend it. It is absolutely beautiful. There is a ton of opportunities. Again, use this last page in the book if you have not visited this region. Any of these areas here, or I should also add if you're visiting Canada and have not visited Canada, just take this list. Anything in here to visit would be an excellent choice. It's an absolutely beautiful region. I feel like when people visit the US, they naturally are attracted to the big cities. You have New York, you have Los Angeles. Those are really two key points. But the Great Lakes, I'm a little biased, but the Great Lakes are a beautiful part of the US, and they are also a beautiful part of Canada. So whichever country you're visiting, I would highly recommend giving them a visit if you have not visited them before. And maybe this book will encourage you to give them a visit, or at least give Lake Superior a visit. If you have visited Lake Superior, if you enjoyed this book of photography, if you have similar books you would like to recommend, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I love to receive them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.